Hello, I'm Robert, a fact checker and science blogger, and helping you if you're scared about these things like COVID-19. And this is a map to help you to see that we can actually control this thing. So these are all the countries that have successfully controlled COVID-19 with few or no cases left. All the ones shown in green. And then the yellow ones are very close to controlling it. And many of the red ones have got declining cases, but they're not yet at the point where this website says they're close to controlling the case, in the sense of having none or few cases. So that gives you a lot of optimism, because if you look at them, there's nothing special about these countries. People say, oh, it's an island, or it's a communist country, or it's Asia or something. But every Latin American country, there's every kind of country, European, anywhere in the world, any political system, any religious views, we can control this. And their goal is to turn the whole world green. So that's what they're actually saying, and in theory we can do that. We could eliminate it from the world without a vaccine. New Zealand has shown that. New Zealand has gone all the way down to no cases, and then if they keep it out from the rest of the world, there's no reason for it. It's probably extinct from New Zealand. Now, it might be, I noticed that cluster quite recently, but once that's all sorted out, because that was an imported cluster, and once they've all recovered, then it's all over. So there is a possibility that it surges up again, like happens with measles, where you are completely over it, and then you get another outbreak in your own body. So something's being cured, but there's been no sign at all of this yet with COVID-19, and there's no particular reason to expect that it will do this. So if it doesn't do that, there's no way for it to get back into New Zealand, because it's gone, because there's no one else to infect them. And so in that way, it's possible, if we all did the right things, we could get it out of the world. So, but that is like the perfect situation, and the reason that WHO stopped saying that we can suppress it is because it's hard to see the entire world coordinating in that way. But we know exactly what to do. So the governments have to do a thorough test, trace, isolate, quarantine, and very important also, active surveillance, which is sometimes not getting enough attention. Which means that you check it in the community. As soon as you've got a few cases and there's a possibility of community spread, you've got to test everyone that has symptoms, flu-like symptoms, and continually monitor for it. And then, so that's the government have to do those things. The test, trace, isolate, quarantine, active surveillance. And then, I haven't added the, I will add it in. Then you have the lockdown as a measure, where if you are out of your capacity to do those things, then you will lock down, and if you've done the testing properly, you know where it is, so you don't have to lock down your entire country. So you can lock down little regions. And then, and that's just because you haven't managed to control it with all those, because you've been overwhelmed or something. And then, so that's what the government do. And then on the people side, you've got the physical distancing of 1 metre, wash your hands thoroughly, avoid touching your eyes, nose or mouth, and cover a cough. They now say also to use cloth masks. You've got to know how to use them properly, wash them thoroughly, put them all around your ears, don't touch the front of the mask. If we do this, so if everyone did that, we have 3 different ways of doing it. We have the targeted lockdowns, which the UK showed by itself, a lockdown can turn it into level of less than 1. So, and the way that works, if you've got 100 people, and even if you stop, at the moment they infect 2.5 on average each person, if you can drop that down to a half, then you start off with 100 people who've got it, they infect 50, then 25, then 12, and so on, and you end up with 200 people, and it's over, and it's gone, it's extinct. So if you can get it so that each person infects on average half another person, then it will soon stop. It's just got no way of continuing. And that is basically the theory behind test, trace, isolate and quarantine, is that you're trying to do that, and New Zealand did achieve that. New Zealand achieved 0.5. I haven't copied that over properly. I'll do that in a minute. So, New Zealand achieved it very quickly because it managed to reduce the number of anyone infected to a half. So if you've got 50 people in New Zealand, they would infect only 25 instead of infecting 125, as they would have done before, and then going up and up, and so that's how it stops. So it's quite simple, and so and then you look at this long list of countries that are almost there, that are considered as having completely controlled it, because the numbers are very small. Even if you've got these little ups, they're still controlling it, according to this website. And then you have the ones that have it nearly under control, including the United Kingdom. Scotland is a part of the United Kingdom, but with a devolved government, we've got it much better under control, because we kept the lockdown a little bit longer and started the test, trace, isolate well into while it was under lockdown. That makes it much easier to control than if you leave the test, trace, isolate until after you've eased the lockdown. Then it's much harder to trace everyone. So it's really worth doing it, even if you've been late in putting in test, trace, isolate. It really is a good idea to put it in first and then keep going for another week or two of the lockdown with test, trace, isolate in place, and then you can really bring it down before you ease the lockdown. In the United States, then you can see it's not that there's this big thing about the double blip curve thing. If you can see, in all these states, it's either controlled or very close to controlled, as New York. Oh, sorry, I can't bring up New York on that map. If I go to the actual website, then I can bring up New York. So that's the actual map. And if you go to the website itself, then you can click on the cases, state, and you'll see how each one's doing. So anyway, I'll talk a little bit then when it comes up. So and California is going really up. Has never had a dip, and so that's really the problem. Is going up and up, but we can control it because all the other countries and even these other states show it can be controlled, and it's a case of them turning it around. And in some cases, they actually have done some control already before that peak. So we can definitely control it. Here we go. So bring up New York, and they brought it down like that. Now, if only they had just kept on with their lockdown a bit more, because they only brought in the proper tracing. They only had adequate testing by May 29. They only had adequate tracing about then, sudden boost in tracing. And if they'd kept up the lockdown a little bit longer after that, and then it would have come down much faster. But they're also having problems in the quality of their tracing, which seems to be a bit of a problem in the United States. So you've got to have good quality tracing. The people have to share their contacts with you, feel comfortable, you've got a positive rapport with the person, and so it's quite a complex matter. It's not easy to be a good contact tracer, and that's part of the problem, because you've got to help them and talk to them. Now you may have to talk to them several times, and it's easy to forget who you were talking to yesterday morning, say, and that's the job of the contact tracer, to make that rapport and then actually find out the contacts. And then the problem of talking to contacts and people just not letting you complete your interview, busy lives, and off they go. So there's work to be done there. Anyway, but all these other countries have shown how it can be done, and we've shown it can be done in New York, in the United States, and so it has. That is what we have to do. And then, so the last thing I want to talk about is just about the vaccines briefly. So we could stop it without a vaccine if we were just really, really rigorous and all doing our proper thing. And if you should do your protection properly to help protect it to others. But just to say about vaccines, so the 17 vaccines in clinical evaluation now, one in phase 3, and that's the Oxford one. And if we're lucky, they've just had 5,000 volunteers in Brazil, and if this one turns out to be a safe and effective vaccine, then they are already prepared to have 100 million to the UK, and 300 million to the US, and Europe will have 400 million doses of this vaccine this autumn, and they have also, have I put it there, they've also got 400 million for the countries with weaker healthcare systems, the countries with low and middle income countries, and then Brazil has got a separate arrangement to be able to produce its own doses of the vaccine. And they also have the capacity, probably going into 2021, for 2 billion doses already, and then this clearly could be scaled up to the entire world and 7.5 billion. So it's certain we've got this possibility for a vaccine if the Oxford one works. Then if that first one, if we're lucky, if the first one works, then as soon as this autumn, and there's several others just behind it, which still make it possible we could have a vaccine in 2020 from one of those 16 ones in clinical trials, since it's being done so quickly. It went so quickly for the Oxford one, and the others, quite a few are already in phase 2, and some in phase, and many in phase 1, 2, and then 9 in phase 1, 5 in phase 1 or 2. I think it's 2 in phase 2, is it? 2 in phase 2 and 1 in phase 3. So that's a lot of vaccines. Then you have the 130 odd, how many is it? 132 in preclinical evaluation, and so many of those will go on to go into clinical trials. Not all of them. Some will fail preclinical evaluation, but a fair few will end up in clinical trials. So, and then the more coming on all the time, and there are many different techniques and technologies. So the situation is looking really very good, that the end is in sight. We can stop it without a vaccine if we really, really were to come together in some remarkable, extraordinary way, that worldwide all the governments were to start coordinating and doing the things that we know work. And then if the people worldwide also were to do the physical distancing properly and do the things we know work for people to do, and the governments do the things that they know work for governments to do, if we did this worldwide, then we would have stop it that way. We could stop it that way. That's the idea behind this website. And so it's not so easy, but we can certainly suppress it, and we can certainly expand on the number of green countries, because it's not just China. We've got Norway in Europe, we've got Australia and New Zealand, we've got large parts of Canada. So there's and in Latin America there's Belize, Bahamas and Cuba. They've all controlled it very well. So amongst others. So we can definitely do it, and gradually countries are putting things in place and states are putting things in place. Okay, I'll stop this. And just remember that join our Facebook group if you need help, and also if you're good at fact checking, like doing what I'm doing. And of course, if you see any mistakes in any of my videos, do say in the comments. And I hope this has helped some of you be a little bit more optimistic about COVID-19, and that we one way or another we're going to tackle this, and we are tackling this, and many countries have already shown that it can be done.